Chapter 56 of Barnaby Rudge, A Tale of the Riots of '80. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recorded by Mill Nicholson. Barnaby Rudge, A Tale of the Riots of '80 by Charles Dickens. Chapter 56. The Maypole cronies, little dreaming of the change so soon to come upon their favourite haunt, struck through the forest path upon their way to London, and avoiding the main road, which was hot and dusty, kept to the bypaths and the fields. As they drew nearer to their destination, they began to make inquiries of the people whom they passed concerning the riots, and the truth or falsehood of the stories they had heard. The answers went far beyond any intelligence that had spread to quiet Chigwell. One man told them that afternoon the guards, conveying to Newgate some rioters who had been re-examined, had been set upon by the mob and compelled to retreat. Another, that the houses of 2 witnesses near Clare Market were about to be pulled down when he came away. Another, that Sir George Saville's house in Leicester Fields was to be burnt that night, and that it would go hard with Sir George if he fell into the people's hands, as it was he who had brought in the Catholic bill. All accounts agreed that the mob were out in stronger numbers and more numerous parties than had yet appeared, that the streets were unsafe, that no man's house or life was worth an hour's purchase, that the public consternation was increasing every moment, and that many families had already fled the city. One fellow, who wore the popular colour, damned them for not having cockades in their hats, and bade them set a good watch to-morrow night upon their prison doors, for the locks would have a straining. Another asked if they were fireproof, that they walked abroad without the distinguishing mark of all good and true men. And a third, who rode on horseback, and was quite alone, ordered them to throw each man a shilling in his hat towards the support of the rioters. Although they were afraid to refuse compliance with this demand, and were much alarmed by these reports, they agreed, having come so far, to go forward and see the real state of things with their own eyes. So they pushed on quicker, as men do who are excited by portentous news, and ruminating on what they had heard, spoke little to each other. It was now night, and as they came nearer to the city, they had dismal confirmation of this intelligence in 3 great fires, all close together, which burnt fiercely and were gloomily reflected in the sky. Arriving in the immediate suburbs, they found that almost every house had chalked upon its door in large characters, "No Popery," that the shops were shut, and that alarm and anxiety were depicted in every face they passed. Noting these things with a degree of apprehension which neither of the 3 cared to impart in its full extent to his companions, they came to a turnpike gate which was shut. They were passing through the turnstile on the path, when a horseman rode up from London at a hard gallop, and called to the toll-keeper in a voice of great agitation to open quickly in the name of God. The adjuration was so earnest and vehement that the man, with a lantern in his hand, came running out, toll-keeper though he was, and was about to throw the gate open, when happening to look behind him, he exclaimed, "Good Heaven! What's that? Another fire?" At this the 3 turned their heads, and saw in the distance, straight in the direction whence they had come, a broad sheet of flame casting a threatening light upon the clouds, which glimmered as though the conflagration were behind them, and showed like a wrathful sunset. "My mind misgives me," said the horseman, "or I know from what far building those flames come. Don't stand aghast, my good fellow. Open the gate." "Sir," cried the man, laying his hand upon his horse's bridle as he let him through, "I know you now, sir. Be advised by me. Do not go on. I saw them pass, and know what kind of men they are. You will be murdered." "So be it," said the horseman, looking intently towards the fire, and not at him who spoke. "But sir, sir," cried the man, grasping at his rein more tightly yet, "if you do go on, wear the blue riband here, sir," he added, taking one from his own hat. "It's necessity, not choice, that makes me wear it. It's love of life and home, sir. Wear it for this one night, sir. Only for this one night." "Do," cried the 3 friends, pressing round his horse. Mr Haredale, worthy sir, good gentleman, pray be persuaded.' 'Who's that?' cried Mr Haredale, stooping down to look. 'Did I hear Daisy's voice?'
'You did, sir,' cried the little man. 'Do be persuaded, sir. This gentleman says very true. Your life may hang upon it.'
'Are you,' said Mr Haredale abruptly, 'afraid to come with me?'
'I, sir? No.'
'Put that riband in your hat. If we meet the rioters, swear that I took you prisoner for wearing it. I will tell them so with my own lips, for as I hope for mercy when I die, I will take no quarter from them, nor shall they have quarter from me, if we come hand to hand to-night. Up here, behind me, quick! Clasp me tight round the body, and fear nothing.' In an instant they were riding away at full gallop, in a dense cloud of dust, and speeding on like hunters in a dream. It was well the good horse knew the road he traversed, for never once, no, never once in all the journey, did Mr Haredale cast his eyes upon the ground, or turn them for an instant from the light towards which they sped so madly. Once he said in a low voice, 'It is my house,' but that was the only time he spoke. When they came to dark and doubtful places, he never forgot to put his hand upon the little man to hold him more securely in his seat, but he kept his head erect and his eyes fixed on the fire, then and always. The road was dangerous enough, for they went the nearest way, headlong, far from the highway, by lonely lanes and paths where waggon wheels had worn deep ruts, where hedge and ditch hemmed in the narrow strip of ground, and tall trees arching overhead made it profoundly dark. But on, with neither stop nor stumble, till they reached the Maypole door, and could plainly see that the fire began to fade, as if for want of fuel. 'Down! For one moment, for but one moment,' said Mr Haredale, helping Daisy to the ground, and following himself. 'Willet! Willet! Where are my niece and servants? Willet!' Crying to him distractedly, he rushed into the bar. The landlord bound and fastened to his chair, the place dismantled, stripped, and pulled about his ears. Nobody could have taken shelter here. He was a strong man, accustomed to restrain himself, and suppress his strong emotions, but this preparation for what was to follow, though he had seen that fire burning, and knew that his house must be razed to the ground, was more than he could bear. He covered his face with his hands for a moment, and turned away his head.
'Johnny, Johnny!'
said Solomon, and the simple-hearted fellow cried outright, and wrung his hands.
'Oh dear old Johnny, here's a change! At the Maypole bar should come to this, and we should live to see it. The old Warren too, Johnny. Mr Haredale. Oh Johnny, what a piteous sight this is!' Pointing to Mr Haredale as he said these words, little Solomon Daisy put his elbows on the back of Mr Willet's chair, and fairly blubbered on his shoulder. While Solomon was speaking, old John sat, mute as a stockfish, staring at him with an unearthly glare, and displaying, by every possible symptom, entire and complete unconsciousness. But when Solomon was silent again, John followed with his great round eyes the direction of his looks, and did appear to have some dawning distant notion that somebody had come to see him. 'You know us, don't you, Johnny?' said the little clerk, rapping himself on the breast. 'Daisy, you know. Chigwell Church, bell ringer, little desk on Sundays, eh, Johnny?' Mr Willet reflected for a few moments, and then muttered, as it were mechanically, 'Let us sing to the praise and glory of—' 'Yes, to be sure!' cried the little man hastily. 'That's it. That's me, Johnny. You're all right now, ain't you? Say you're all right, Johnny.'
'All right,' pondered Mr Willet, as if that were a matter entirely between himself and his conscience. 'All right. Ah!'
'They haven't been misusing you with sticks or pokers, or any other blunt instruments, have they, Johnny?' asked Solomon, with a very anxious glance at Mr Willet's head. 'They didn't beat you, did they?' John knitted his brow, looked downwards as if he were mentally engaged in some arithmetical calculation, then upwards as if the total would not come at his call.
then at Solomon Daisy, from his eyebrow to his shoe buckle.